Kendrick Lamar's response to Drake's diss track is probably the most anticipated thing in hip-hop right now. And when you really think about it, Kendrick Lamar is under the most pressure that any rapper has faced in the past 2 decades. In fact, this is a make or break moment in Kendrick Lamar's legacy. And to explain what I mean, let's just talk about everything that's happened so far. So the date is March 22nd, 2024, and Future and Metro Boomin are set to release a collaborative album with We Don't Trust You, which originally didn't raise that many flags on the surface until people listened to the record and found out that none other than Kendrick Lamar had a hidden feature on the track like that.
These niggas talking out of their neck, don't put no coughing out of your mouth.
The track immediately caught fire, not only because the beat was amazing or because it was an overall banger, but because of what Kendrick Lamar said in his guest verse.
Motherfuck the big three, nigga, it's just big me, nigga, bum.
Whereas the trio of rappers threw shots at each other subliminally for the past decade, Kendrick's shot on Like That made it clear that Kendrick wanted war. And thankfully for hip-hop fans, Kendrick got a battle not too far after, with J. Cole releasing 7-Minute Drill.
Light work, like it's PWC.
The track made it clear that Kendrick was not gonna go off the hook this time. There was going to be a battle, or at least that's what it appeared to be at first, because J. Cole would go on to apologize, making the impact of the song more or less bittersweet for everybody.
Right? So I'm so proud of that project, except for one part. It's one part of that shit that make me feel like, man, that's the lamest shit I ever did in my fucking life, right?
And to be honest, after J. Cole apologized, it seemed like Kendrick Lamar was essentially gonna walk away with the easiest W in the history of hip-hop beef, as Cole stepped aside and Drake was yet to be heard. Many people thought Drake wouldn't respond actually. Some went as far as to say that Drake didn't need to respond. But considering that Like That was the #1 song in the country, I think it would have been crazy if Drake wouldn't have responded, which he did 2 weeks later with the release of Push Ups.
Take no chain off of us. How the fuck you big stepping with a size 7 man's on?
Hip-hop fans rejoiced at the fact that the beef was going to continue and that Drake was not gonna go the J. Cole route, especially because he didn't just have smoke for Kendrick Lamar, he had smoke for everybody that had smoke with him.
Metro, shut your whole ass up and make some drums, nigga.
Whether it be Future, Metro Boomin, The Weeknd, or Kanye even, Drake made sure to let everybody know that he wants to smoke. The release of Drake's diss, Push Ups, isn't just a solid response, but honestly one of the better songs to release this year. And specifically as it relates to Kendrick Lamar, he made sure people knew that he wanted to smoke by releasing another track aimed at Kendrick Lamar.
Kendrick, we need ya, the West Coast savior.
This time by the way of Taylor Made Freestyle, which is definitely a controversial song to say the least, but also a decent track in terms of disses, especially since Drake makes his voice sound like Tupac and Snoop Dogg via AI, which is extremely disrespectful. But then again, this is hip-hop beef, no? I mean, personally, I think it's corny, but you know? And in case you want to bring up what Kendrick did on The Heart Part 5, I also think it was a little bit weird. Not necessarily the mapping of people's faces onto him, but the whole writing from the POV of Nipsey Hussle is a little bit weird, I'll say that. Anyways though, Taylor Made Freestyle has put on more pressure on Kendrick Lamar's response. Especially with Drake egging Kendrick on to respond, the optics of the whole situation don't look good. Ultimately, as long as it's not something like 6 months, the timeline of the response doesn't really matter that much. But the fact that Drake is using it against him definitely works in Drake's favor. And I mean, at this point, all eyes are on Kendrick Lamar. So many eyes and so many people are waiting for Kendrick's response that they didn't even care when Kanye joined the beef.
Kanye, sit your fucking ass down somewhere. Mind your fucking business. This is not about you. This is some attention-seeking shit.
Which is insane because Kanye has a cult-level fan base. Anyways, we are all under the same understanding that it can simply not end there. Though Kendrick Lamar's verse on Like That was great, and that if it did, it would be extremely disappointing. And not only does Kendrick have to respond, he has to deliver. Because if the Kendrick Lamar response track drops and it's anything less than spectacular, a lot of people will look at Kendrick's career as a rapper, and especially as a lyricist, under a very different light. And honestly, Kendrick Lamar would be looked at as someone who could not handle the heat when the fire was near. Especially when considering who Kendrick is, this would be a substantial hit to his legacy. I mean, think about it. The big three. Have you ever thought about why it's the big three? Have you ever thought about why it's the big three? Why it's Kendrick, Cole, and Drake, and not Future or Kanye or Tyler the Creator? These three came after the worst era of hip-hop, or at least what was perceived to be as the worst era of hip-hop. Nas was saying hip-hop was dead. Jay-Z was essentially saying hip-hop was dead, or it was whack with Death of Autotune. And here came three rappers who everybody looked at as the people who would carry on the torch and bring back hip-hop to its glory days. And though all three of these rappers carried pressure to succeed, nobody had more pressure than Kendrick Lamar. Dr. Dre, The Game, Snoop Dogg, Jay-Z, and even Obama loved Kendrick.
If Drake and Kendrick Lamar got in a rap battle, who do you think would win?
Gotta go with Kendrick.
Whereas Drake, on the other hand, let's just say he struggled to get the same respect.
What about Drake? You like Drake?
No.
This is partly the reason why Drake used AI to make his voice sound like Pac and Snoop, just pointing at the fact that Kendrick Lamar is supposed to have all this respect from the legends, and it's not like Drake had it anyway, so it's not like a love-lost type deal. And to be honest, in this way, Kendrick Lamar and Drake were always meant to be rivals in one way or another, and that's what makes this beef so special, and that's why there's so much at stake. For Drake, not a lot changes if he were to lose. His legacy is not built on lyrical supremacy as much as it is built on selling records. However, if Drake were to win, he'd be up tremendously. I mean, at that point, he does have a very good argument, and a strong one at that, for being the best rapper of this generation, while also reducing the hit that Story of Adidon was on his legacy, because then it'd be easier to say that Story of Adidon was a good song because it was gossipy rather than it being lyrically sharp. Not saying I agree personally, but that's what people may say. For Kendrick Lamar, on the other hand, this will really make or break his career. That might seem like I'm overreacting, but I'm really not. The optics of a rapper as lyrically sharp and as lyrically driven as Kendrick Lamar being out-rapped by Drake is not good. And even if you respect his body of work and you respect his discography, this is a stain that will forever be left on his legacy. And when you argue about Kendrick Lamar being the greatest to ever do it, you can't be surprised if people bring up the fact that Drake out-rapped him. It is up to Kendrick to protect his ground and prove his lyrical supremacy, which would make you think what's next for Kendrick Lamar and how does he win, which is definitely something that is circumstantial. But if it comes down to the music, Kendrick Lamar definitely has to show that he is more lyrically sharp and that he can hurt Drake where it hurt, proving himself to be nothing less than the clear winner. But maybe that's just me. Anyways, with that being said, shout out to Jay Dilla, shout out to God, shout out to me, and a big, anyways, yeah, I'm gonna roll the outro, and yeah.